Hello and welcome. My name is Ashara Mills Henry, and I am the director of a program called Science of the Eye, Bringing Vision into the Classroom. This program is based in Professor Jonathan King's laboratory at MIT. The eye is a fascinating organ that has several components working together to allow for us to see. However, the eye can have some imperfections, leading to eye disease and eye issues. Today, we're going to dissect a mammalian eye and identify structures in the eye that allow for us to see. Before we get started, I would like to ask you a few questions. First of all, why do you think it's important for us to have eyes at all? And have you ever thought about what animals see in animal vision? Do they see the same things that we do? I want you to take a few moments and think about these questions with your classmates. And also, for the challenge segment of this portion, I'd like for you to try and match the animals in the right-hand column to what you think they can see in the left-hand column. I hope you enjoyed that challenge, and in a few moments we'll discuss the answers to the activity. However, before we do that, I want to talk a little bit more about animal eyes. You may be wondering, why am I wearing these funny goggles? In these goggles, the one image that we normally see, I actually see multiple of these images. This is how some people thought animals with compound eyes would see. However, biologists now believe that this is a misconception, and that animals with compound eyes actually see more of a mosaic, pixelated vision. However, it's still fun to think about what are animals actually seeing. Many invertebrates, such as bees, flies, and ants, have compound eyes. But invertebrates also have other types of eyes, from pit eyes to pinhole eyes to eyes with lens. An example of an animal with pit eyes are snails. Pit eyes have eye spots set into a hole, which allows the organism to deduce the angle of incoming light. Animals with pit eyes should be able to see the direction of light. Nautiluses have a slightly more complex version of a pit eye called a pinhole eye, which evolved from a pit to a cup and then a chamber. With a small opening, this type of eye allows the organism to sense direction and some shapes. Scallops have 40 to 60 iridescent blue eyes that are arranged in a row along a scallop's mantle edge. These allow the scallop to detect motion, light, and dark. Scallops can also regrow lost or injured eyes. The compound eye has many facets or repeating units called ommatidia. This picture is an example of a compound Drosophila or fruit fly eye. It is at very high magnification. Each single facet or ommatidium has 8 photoreceptor cells, support cells, pigment cells, and a cornea. And here's a picture of the Drosophila eye at even higher magnification. This is why many people imagine they would see multiple pictures, like the goggles that I mentioned earlier. The octopus eye is amazing and very similar to mammalian eyes, even though they are related to clams. Like the human eye, they have pupils, except theirs are horizontal slits, instead of being round like ours. But now let's turn back to our eyes. Our eye is an example of vertebrate eyes, and later we will do an exploration of a vertebrate eye. Do you wear glasses or contacts? Or maybe know of families, members who have glaucoma or cataract? What we're going to talk about now is the different parts of our eyes and how these diseases can affect those portions of the eye. Our eyes are very important in how we sense the environment around us. Approximately 1/3 of our brain is devoted to visual processing. So now we're going to go into how do you think we see? So you want to take a look at your worksheets and predict, using the diagram, how you think light would reflect off an object and come into your eye. So How do our eyes work? Using a model of the human eye, I'll demonstrate what happens. First, light bounces off of objects. For example, you see this image here, into the cornea, which refracts light or bends light, through the lens, which also refracts light, and then onto the photosensitive portion of the retina. In the retina, it sends electrical chemical signals on through the optic nerve and then into the brain. The image that's formed on the retina is actually upside down. And then our brains, as great as they are, flips this image right side up. We detect a narrow region of the electromagnetic radiation spectrum called the visible light region. These are the wavelengths that are visible to the human eye. Photosensitive cells in the retina can detect visible light region of the spectrum, ranging from short wavelengths, starting at about 390 nanometers, to longer wavelengths, ending at about 750 nanometers. Animals can respond to different wavelengths of light. Some animals can actually perceive wavelengths outside of the visible light region of the electromagnetic spectrum. For example, insects such as bees can see in the ultraviolet region of the electromagnetic spectrum, as well as the visible light region. Other animals can perceive longer wavelengths of light, such as snakes, which have an infrared detector organ separate from their eyes called pit vipers. Some animals can perceive some of the same colors that we do, and they also can perceive some colors that we cannot. Also, we can perceive colors that some animals cannot perceive. For example, some primates can see a mixture of reds, blues, and greens, or what we like to call trichromatic vision, like us. Other primates can see a mixture of blues and greens, but not reds. They are considered dichromatic. And others, like the nocturnal owl monkey, are monochromatic, seeing only blacks, whites, and grays. Dogs and cats, for example, can see very pale shades of colors. But they can see a lot better at night, better than we can. They have better peripheral vision, and also they can see movement a lot better than humans can. Because of these reasons, they probably were very good hunters when they had to be. Now we just feed them dog food and cat food. This may look like a volleyball, but this represents the size of the largest eye in the animal kingdom. Can you guess what animal this eye belongs to? Well, if you guessed the giant squid, you would be right. Can you imagine this eye looking at you? Well, now that I have discussed some of the animal eyes, look at your worksheets, and if you have some changes to make, did you make any changes? If we look at the first picture, it looks like this animal perceives the infrared region of the electromagnetic spectrum. Which animal does that? That's right, snakes. Remember, snakes have pit organs that can sense infrared radiation, or in other words, heat, and allows the snake to process this image. The second picture is the example of what some primates may see, so we match it to the squirrel monkey. Remember, some primates have dichromatic vision and probably can see very similar to what a person with red-green color blindness sees. The third picture is the example of what nocturnal animals see, animals that are active at night. Which animal do we know can see well at night? That's right, cats see well in the dark and at night. Cats and other nocturnal animals have a tissue in their eyes called the tapetum lucidum that assists in helping animals see in low light environments. Light reflecting off of this structure is why animal eyes glow at night. We will see this tissue later in the lesson. What about the fourth picture? This is a picture of an animal that has a blind spot in the middle of its field of view. Horses have eyes on either side of their heads, which is good for the range in their field of view, but makes it difficult to see right in front of them, especially when their heads are parallel to the ground. Research has shown that this blind spot is probably the width of the body of the horse. You may have noticed that horses raise their heads slightly if they are approaching an item head-on. For example, a gate that it has to jump over. This allows the horse to see the item in front of them better and gives them better depth perception. For example, if you covered one eye and tried to reach out for something, it's more difficult if you had two eyes. With one eye covered, that is the case of monocular vision, and with two eyes, that's the case of binocular vision. You should try this at home, but don't break anything. By lifting its head, the horse is switching from monocular vision to binocular vision, thereby giving it a better depth perception. In the fifth picture, you see a pixelated mosaic view of a flower. As mentioned before, biologists predict that many animals with compound eyes can see pixelated images, so you probably picked the fly. Learning more about the compound eye will help researchers develop lenses for cameras that will allow the camera to see in dark areas and light areas of the field of view. In the last photo, there is a clear view of two best friends. This is a representation of what we see as humans. Scientists are constantly adding new knowledge about what we see and about what animals see. Now that you've thought a little bit about how you see, I have a challenge question for you. How long does the mirror have to be in order for you to see your entire body? Do you think that if you're closer to the mirror, you see less of your body, and if you're further away from the mirror, you see more of your body? Do you think distance would play a role in how much you see in the mirror? Well, we're going to test this out right now to see if distance does play a role. And I'm going to use my handy assistant here, Lisa. So with the mirror at eye level and held flat in a flat position, I will ask Lisa to move forward and back from the mirror. Lisa, did you see more of your body or less of your body?
No, distance did not play a role in how much of my body I could see in the mirror, whether I came forward or backward.
So distance does not play a role. This may seem counterintuitive, but let's think about it in terms of vision. What's happening? What will happen is that light will actually bounce off of our foot and into the mirror, and then from the mirror into our eyes. So the mirror would have to be half of our body length in order for us to see our entire body. And you can try this out at home. Today we are going to dissect a mammalian eye, and this is actually a cow's eye. So as you can see, the cow eye looks fairly big. It's a little bit bigger than our eyes. The cow eye has a lot of surrounding tissue around the eye. Can you guess what this surrounding tissue is? You see some tissue that's actually yellow and white in nature, and some tissue that's actually pink in nature. So this tissue surrounding the eye is fat and muscles that are important. The fat is important for cushioning the eye and the bone orbital that surrounds the eye. So you can imagine that if for some reason we had a head injury, the fat is sort of used as the shock absorber and prevents the eye from being damaged. The muscles that surround the eyeball are important for eye movement. Cows have 4 muscles, one at the top of the eye, one at the bottom, and 2 on the sides. This allows for the cow to move its eye up and down and side to side. For one of our challenge questions, I want to ask you, do you think we have more muscles than the cow eye or less muscles? In the challenge question, we're actually going to do an exercise that indicates how our eyes move even if we think we're staring. So I want you to take a look at this optical illusion and describe what you see in the optical illusion. So we actually have 6 muscles. So we have 2 additional muscles around our eyes. This allows us to roll our eyes when we're upset at our parents, and this allows us to have more movement in our eyes compared to the cow. What did you see when you saw the optical illusion? Well, you probably saw that there were some slight movements of the particular boxes in the frame of reference. This indicates that our eye has voluntary eye movements, like the rolling of our eyes, and also our eye has involuntary eye movements. The reason why we have involuntary eye movements is that it prevents us from our cells in the back of our eye, the cells of the retina, from becoming too overly stimulated. So the slight movement of the eye will prevent them from becoming dull or overly stimulated, and allows us to continue to see an image around us. If you look closely, you'll start to see some liquid seeping out of where I'm cutting. Try to take This liquid is called the aqueous humor. And the aqueous humor is important for providing nutrients and to all the structures in the anterior portion of the eye. So for the cornea, and as we'll see, once I cut the cornea out, we'll see the iris and the other portions of the eye. If you have issues with the cornea, is what causes some of our refractive errors. If the cornea is too thick, it can cause nearsightedness or myopia, or if it's too thin, it can cause farsightedness or hyperopia. The cornea is a transparent tissue that refracts most of the light that enters our eyes. Refractive errors, such as nearsightedness and farsightedness, are caused because of abnormalities within the cornea. If the cornea bulges too much, or if the eyeball is slightly longer than normal, what happens is that light will actually refract or bend in front of the retina, causing what's called nearsightedness or myopia. On the other hand, if the cornea is too thin, or if your eyeball is too short, what happens is light will refract or bend behind the retina, causing hyperopia or farsightedness. These refractive errors can be corrected by using either contact lenses or glasses. How many of you have heard of LASIK surgery? LASIK uses a UV laser to change the overall shape of the cornea. The process involves creating a corneal flap by using a small knife called a microknife. The flap is folded back and the laser beam then reshapes the cornea. Then the cornea flap is folded back in place. The laser can remove tens of millimeters of corneal tissue and is extremely precise. By reshaping the cornea, light can be refracted directly onto the retina, thereby improving vision. The cornea is important for refraction, and also the lens is important for refraction. The cornea performs most of the refraction because if you think about it, as light travels from a medium, air medium, to an aqueous environment, which is our eye, light will actually bend. Think about the straw in the glass and how light bends the straw. This is exactly what's happening in our cornea. The light is bending mostly in the cornea, and then the lens, which we'll see in a moment, is actually fine focusing the light onto the retina. Using the light box, I will demonstrate how light is refracted onto the retina. When light strikes the cornea, it bends and converges on the back of the eye. The lens fine focuses the light onto the retina. We will see the lens in a few moments. The cornea of the eye is usually transparent. Looking at the pictures, is this person nearsighted or farsighted? And how would you correct their vision with a corrective lens? Think about those questions and work on this problem with your classmates. If you have myopia or nearsightedness, what happens is light focuses before the retina. And to correct for this issue, you would need a concave lens like this one. A concave lens has a thinner middle and is wider on the edges. If you have hyperopia or farsightedness, light rays would focus after the retina. In order to correct for this, you would need a convex lens, which is thicker in the middle and thinner on the edges. I hope you enjoyed that challenge. Have you ever had the dreaded pink eye? Conjunctivitis, or pink eye, is the inflammation or infection of the conjunctiva, a transparent membrane that covers part of the eyelid and the anterior part of the sclera, the white portion of our eyes. This membrane is important for providing blood supply to the outer surface of the eye. Exposure to viruses, bacteria, allergens, or chemicals can cause inflammation of the small blood vessels in the conjunctiva. The dilation of the small blood vessels in the conjunctiva causes these vessels to become more visible, and the eye appears to be pink or red. Hemorrhaging of the blood vessels can also cause the eye to appear red. So now that we've opened up the cornea, what you can see underneath is the iris and the pupil. So the iris is actually what gives our eyes their color. We have different color irises like green, blue, brown. Mostly for cows, they have brown or black irises. And the pupil is actually the hole in which the light goes through. Now the pupil, if you've noticed, can change shape depending on how much light it's exposed to. In environments of low level of light, usually the pupil expands. And in environments of high intensity light, the pupil will actually contract and get smaller. If you take a flashlight and you shine it into one eye but not the other eye, both pupils should contract. So I'm going to demonstrate this on Lisa. So again, if we take a flashlight and we shine it into one eye, both pupils will actually contract and get smaller because of the brightness of the eye, of the light. Doctors use this as a diagnostic tool to check to see if there's damage in your optic nerve, your brainstem, or also for the use of certain drugs. Try this with your partner in the classroom. Now what we'll do is we'll cut around the iris to expose the lens. The lens is the white portion that you see behind the pupil. So the pupil is actually just the hole that's letting the light through, even though it looks black in our eyes. So as we cut around, you can see the lens sits in the middle of the eye. And surrounding the lens, I'll show you later, is actually the ciliary body. So for now, I'll just pop the lens out. Now, usually, once again, our lenses are transparent and clear, but because of the preservatives that are used to prevent the eye from rotting, the lens is now